This is Martin Perdomo, the Elite Strategist on Latinos and Real Estate Investing podcast, and today's guest is Eric Villata. And Eric Villata is a started his real estate career in 2005 as an aspiring realtor during the last economic downturn, during the mortgage crisis. So he's a credit repair guy. He is also an investor. Him and his group own 40 doors. They're going to be buying another property. He told me it's going to be 41 real soon. So he's an experienced investor. However, I do have him here today as an investor, and I have him here as a credit repair guy because we're going to have upcoming opportunity in the near future here in 2020. Right now it's July 2020. So let's call it August because we're in the end of July. We're in August 2020 when this episode launches, and I believe there's going to be tremendous opportunity coming up, and I wanted to bring Eric so Eric can help us prepare credit-wise for what's ahead. Eric, thank you for coming. Welcome to the show. And
thank
Eric,
you.
please tell us a little bit about yourself, Eric.
Thank you, Martin. Absolutely. I appreciate you having me on here, first of all, just because anything that I can share hopefully is a good taste of value for the listeners, and more importantly, to help people get closer to their financial goals, So thank you for having me on. Appreciate the introduction. Like you said, I started in real estate back in 2005, during one of the hardest economic times, I believe when baby boomers and realtors were exploding, the industry was changing, however, to say the least, just like it is now, right? A lot of variables out of our control that ended up moving me in different directions. I always stayed with credit-based sales, whether it was working for the mobile industry. I took a career on with different mobile companies that were credit-based, especially when it came to business plans. Moved into commercial payroll, and up until most recently, I was a commercial credit advisor with Dun & Bradstreet, and I did that for many years. It was exciting. It allowed me to help business owners get their foot, into the ground, start, a platform so that they can understand the buying power, their credit needs, and more importantly, getting what they want at the cheapest possible cost with the best possible terms, right? Because in reality, that's what the credit just represents, right? Our risk and what the terms are that are set before us. So I'm excited to be on this podcast. It's been a long journey. Like you mentioned, up until recent, now I own a credit repair company. I took all the knowledge that I had and all the success that I used becoming a commercial credit advisor and making my name in that world, and use it on the personal realm. Now, my business is so impactful because it's truly inspiring people, to say the least. They finally see that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, that they can get the things that they want in life. And no one is the same, right? We all come from different paths. We all have different beginnings. And I think that life affects everyone, sooner or later, whether it's on a financial spectrum, whether it's on a health spectrum, whether it's on economical, work spectrum. I think life affects all of us at some point where our credit could be tarnished. And really understanding the ins and outs of credit was what allowed me to have this business. So now I am one of 3 partners, like you mentioned, with GK United Credit Repair. We're located in the Lehigh Valley. We were started here in Bethlehem in 2017. And we've been doing amazing, with our Latino community, especially because of the fact that I'm bilingual. My mother is from Peru. My father is Italian and Salvadorian. I come from very humble beginnings, and my parents initially came to this country looking for the American dream, and they didn't have all the answers to finding how to get that American dream. So, this business meant a lot to me. I'm excited to be on here, and I appreciate you having me to share my success and what I can do for everyone else.
You're welcome. You're welcome, brother. So tell me, so you worked for these big companies. You learned how to repair credit. So there's a lot of people out there. Listen, man, from investor to investor, Eric, right? Yeah. You're going to be my guest speaker we're going to talk about that in a bit, at one of my events here upcoming, because the importance of credit. We are headed, I think there's going to be a correction in the market. Just all the data points to that. I've been talking about that. And I don't mean that as a real estate investor, we need to prepare. We need to try. we need to try to anticipate. So one of my mentors says, clarity is power. And I'm always talking about that here. And I shared this at my last meetup, but anticipation is ultimate power. So if we can try to anticipate what's happening in the market and what's coming ahead, what I can tell you is, from my experience, and you know, because you was in the business in 2005, 2007, is that this looks a lot, what's happening right now in our market looks a lot like then, and the market is really hot, and the market is going to correct itself. It has to correct itself. When that market corrects itself, are people going to be in the position to execute on the opportunities that are going to be before them, right? And credit is a big part of that. Having good credit is a big part of that. So as a credit professional, a credit advisor, and a credit repair guy, so let me ask you this. What are the big things lenders look at when they look at credit? When a lender is looking at credit and they want to lend us money, can you tell us what are the big things that our lenders are most concerned with?
Absolutely. So just to feed off of what you're saying, you're absolutely right. I feel like every 10, 15 years, the market almost like reanalyzes itself or kind of resets itself. And, there is a quote, and I love what you said about, true clarity, but, there's a quote that says, success or luck is when preparation meets opportunity, right?
Yes,
so that's when people get, as they say, quote unquote, lucky. So for us to get or put ourselves into the best position possible to take advantage of what happens once all the dust settles with this market and with all these changes is, obviously taking a look at what we're currently doing with our credit, right? What does that mean? First of all, the credit score, because a lot of people see different numbers, they see different colors, they don't know what that means necessarily. Ultimately, the credit is going to determine your risk, right? The likelihood of you paying back a debt on time and how often you're more than likely going to pay it back on time. Are you going to be, a high risk of paying that debt before or after those terms? So what to do to be best prepared? The best thing you can do is, first of all, be on top of your credit, right? Knowing where you stand. What are the current things you have open? Because that score, predominantly, I would say 60% of your credit is based on your current open habits, meaning what is your current payment history on your car looking like? Are you paying always on time? Are you 50% paying on time person? Or those are variables that creditors and financial institutions look at more than anything is your payment history. So if those things don't exist, for example, I run into specifically a lot of clients that don't have things open. That's one of the biggest contributors as to why their credit is not where they want it to be. So we have to take a look at, right, how you're paying your bills. How many lines of trade do you have, right? Because whether you have a credit card, an installment loan, dental, plastic surgery, these are all trade lines. As long as you're paying them off between you and an entity, these things could be reported to the credit bureau. So how is that information getting to the credit bureau? Which one is it getting to? These are all different variables that we need to look at, because banks, as some of us know or not know, we could, potentially fall the risk of not getting information reported to an agency, right? So there's certain things that we pay now, like utilities, our rent, our insurance, those things don't necessarily get reported to the credit bureau. So how do we find what we're doing right and how we can get that information that we're doing right to the credit bureau? And that's what I do for people. I guide them and I teach them, most importantly, how they can maintain, not only improve their credit, but maintain it with the right positive habits going forward.
Perfect. That's a lot. You gave a lot of good stuff there. Really good. Thank you for that. My next question is, you said something in there about keeping an eye on your credit. How does someone keep an eye on their credit? Because maybe a listener is out there listening. How can they do that? I know there's some services out there that you can get for free that kind of keeps an eye on your credit, but can you share how one does that?
Absolutely. I mean, I personally rely on credit monitoring. Some people don't have the expenses or don't want to go, like you said, there are free ways to do it. Majority of our banks now are offering us the ability to at least see the score. A lot of these different apps or programs won't maybe give you a breakdown of it, but you can get a credit report for free every year. You could actually get a credit report for multiple reasons. If you were denied employment, if you were denied insurance, if you're on unemployment or welfare, you can actually pull a credit report for free annually through annualcreditreport.com. That's a service that is offered to everyone. It's part of your legal right to view and have and see those things so that you can manage them. If you were denied for, some of the things that I just listed, those are ways that you can pull it for free. There's also multiple applications out there. I'm sure many people have heard of Credit Sesame or My Free FICO or Credit Karma even is one of the biggest ones. I like to have a credit monitoring service that I use, which actually gears me to all three credit bureaus. Because as I just mentioned, they could vary, right? Some of the reasons why we scratch our heads on credit sometimes is because the number is different between all three bureaus. And we're like, why is that? We don't understand how that comes about. So the best way to be prepared is to view what all three credit agencies are saying. And at least for free, once every 6 months, being able to pull up your credit report. If you have something on your phone that alerts you, like some of my clients, I've geared them into a credit monitoring service, because I deal with a lot of business owners and investors like yourself, right? And they want to be on top and want to maintain. They have no error or no room for errors.
Yes.
And therefore, those are the ways to be on top of it.
So I'm glad you mentioned that. You said dealing with investors, there is no room for errors or mistakes. We can't afford to have any challenges, although I want to make sure that I'm very clear to my listeners. Credit is important, and I want you to know that you don't need your own money. I want to remind you that you don't need your own money to invest in real estate, and you don't necessarily need good credit to invest in real estate. I want to make sure I'm clear on that because I don't want to confuse anyone. It's important that if you don't have good credit and you want to invest in real estate, that you begin to work on it, because there's going to be some strategies that you need in order to execute. You're going to need good credit. You could do seller finance deals. You can do deals where you're getting private money. So there's different ways to do deals. However, ultimately, in the end, eventually, if you're starting out and you want to do this business, your credit is going to come into account at some point or another. So I just want to make sure I disclose that. I don't discourage people, and people think, hey, I need to have good credit, because you really don't. To invest, you could do other creative ways. And it's extremely important that you work on it, because ultimately you're gonna lean in with that. So my next question is, as an investor, why is it important, right? You, from one investor to another, why are we investors so concerned with making sure that our credit is good? Can you share that with the listeners?
Absolutely. I mean, there's multiple reasons why. I think now credit is becoming more of an importance now than ever, and more than just institutions and lending. Up until recent, there's employers now, looking at these things. It does affect you in so many different ways, Martin. Let me explain, right? The reason your credit, the reason your insurance premiums on your home could be higher is because your credit is poor. Maybe your interest could be, in a higher point percentage that you want it to be. That could be based on credit. How much money you have to put down could be based on credit, in addition to obviously saving you on the best kind of terms. I know in the commercial credit world, we talk about terms a lot. Terms is a verbiage for what are all the facts? What are all the details within this purchase? What is my interest rate? How many months do I have to pay? What is my down payment? What is my monthly cost? All those variables have to do with your interest. And then even further than the initial purchase itself, you have your homeowner's insurance, in addition to vehicles insurance, all these other things that could be affected by credit. So it's not just lenders or financial institutions anymore that focus on credit. Even as a landlord, we do background checks and credit checks on our clients, because the same habits that you have on paying your bills on time, you're more than likely going to have those habits paying your rent on time, right? So those are clear indications as a landlord how we can mitigate risk, because as you said, we don't want to have errors. we want to avoid errors. We want that income to flow. We want that cash flow every month. And we don't want to say, I can't get a payment, or I have to eat the payment this month, or I have to take it out of another account. That's the last thing as an investor that we want to do. So if we can mitigate our risk less by knowing who we get into our homes or who we're renting to based on credit, that's a huge, determiner as to which way we're going to decide.
Yes. So, you said something that's most likely if your credit is how you pay your bills, right? That shows you if they have poor history of paying their bills on time, they're probably going to have poor history of paying their rent on time. There's a saying that says how you do anything is how you do everything. And listen, sometimes people come across hard luck, and I have had bad credit at some point in my life when I was younger, man. And we just didn't know. I didn't have the financial education that I have today. And you grow and you learn. And some people, they just come across bad times, divorce, this, that, the other, and that's okay. Just be aware of it. Be aware that this is something that's important and that you have to deal with. You have to deal with for your insurance premiums for many reasons. Another thing I want to just add to what you said, Eric, for investors is extremely important for us investors on terms, because the better our credit, the better terms we get. So that means the better interest rate, the lower interest rates we get. The lower interest rate we get, guess what? The better our cash flow is every month. And if you're buying and holding, the better it's the name of the game of buy and hold is cash flow, right? A cash flow for me, some guys play depreciation game. I play the cash flow game. Cash flow first, appreciation second. And if I have a lower interest, if I can borrow money for cheap to make money, that's the idea. I'm borrowing money for real cheap, but it starts here. It starts right here with Eric. You got to work on your credit. You got to work on that in order for you to get good terms. In order for you to borrow cheap money, you got to show that you're credit worthy to get cheap money. If you don't have credit worthiness, you're going to pay more money for the money. Therefore, your cash flow is going to be less. So it's all tied together, guys. It's extremely important. Eric, I want to switch it up a little bit. From investor to investor, right? What are you seeing? What is your experience? What do you think is in the foreseeable future? What do you see happening with the market, being that you've been in the financial industry for a minute now, 2005?
Yeah. So here's, it's almost like deja vu, it feels, right?
Yes,
it's almost
sir.
like deja vu.
Yep.
And I remember at one point, when I was doing real estate at the time, it was in the Carbon County area of Pennsylvania. If anyone knows where that's at, it's almost all rural, and
Yep.
I remember doing so many showings that almost all homes were foreclosed. It was almost sad, and now with being that almost 80% is actual rents here, especially in the Lehigh Valley where I live, we're going to be coming across an eviction crisis without a doubt. There's
Yep.
going to be people that unfortunately, because of this pandemic, their finances weren't in order. Right prior to the pandemic, I read an article in the New York Times that, some statistics were crazy. About 70 to 80% of our country has less than a 600 credit, less than $1,000 in their bank account as savings, and is living paycheck to paycheck. It was almost too painful to read then. I can't imagine how families are getting through it now with unemployment rates skyrocketing and things like that. Unfortunately, we have to be prepared. One of the best ways to be prepared that I used was I got my credit in order. And the way
Yep.
that I was prepared is I started multiple streams of income by investing in multiple properties. I looked at those as like little McDonald's franchises in my mind. I was like opening up my own little McDonald's franchise here in Allentown and Bethlehem, because every time I got a property, it was a little bit more of income. And the only way that I was able to get myself in that position so that I can leverage myself now, leverage my time, leverage my money, and now more importantly, my credit, is by getting my credit first in order. It was being prepared myself. It was making sure that my bills were on time, that my balances were low, that they weren't maxed out, and I was paying my minimums only, because those are some of the worst contributors to hurting your credit. So there are things that we can do that unfortunately our education system does not teach, you know, and those are some of the big things that I preach about. How can I teach this to other people so that they learn all the tips and tricks and get themselves? Just this morning, I spoke to a gentleman who had a repossession on his credit. He was a delivery truck driver, and because of my travels, I ended up running into him. His credit has jumped up 115 points. He's close to a 740, 730 change credit score. And from a 540 that he was about 6 to 9 months ago, you know, I'm just so happy for him. I can see just his whole demeanor, his expression has changed. The fact that he has better credit, I can see a bigger smile on his face, because I know that he is that much closer to attaining the goals that he wants this year. And, you know, we can't control all the variables in life, right? We can't control the corona, what happens with our presidency, or who's in Congress, or what changes are taking place. But the one thing that we can control is what we do with ourselves and with our time. And the best investment that you can make in yourself, especially in this industry, is in your credit and is in your finances. So, you know, be on top of it. Check your credit score every 4 to 6 months. Have an alert monitoring system. Be on top of it. You don't want people running your credit or doing inquiries or adding information that may not be yours. That's another big variable. You know, there's a lot of information that could get added to somebody's credit report and not necessarily be theirs as well. Those are things I run into all the time. So those are different discrepancies that I like to teach people and help them at least save money and avoid as much stress and save you time as possible.
Thank you for sharing that, because you know, you give people hope. Someone might be listening saying, man, I got a 540 credit score. You know, I have 500. You just said this guy went from 540 to 740. That's amazing in you know, 6 months, 9 months. That's really cool, man. That's really good. Now, what are some actionable steps? Can you give me 3 actionable steps for that people can do right now? Maybe they can do on their own, just because they need to start doing something to prepare to execute on the opportunities that are going to be coming ahead. What are 3 things that you as a professional can tell them to do? I mean, you've given a lot so far, but give them three steps, easy, actionable steps that you can say, hey, you could do this, this, and this, and this, and you're on your way. If before they go see you, or while they're, you know what I mean, on their way to seeing you or calling you or something like that.
Absolutely. I mean, if people were to have some kind of credit monitoring system, you know, even some of these free apps like the ones I just mentioned, those are some of the ways just to have an understanding of what's going on in your credit.
So number one, credit monitoring system, number one, is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, I would say like a credit monitoring system, at least a free one like Credit Karma. And why? Well, it just not only shows you the score, but it gives you a 6 credit factor breakdown in color-coded green, yellow, red, which we all know, right? Green means good, red is bad, yellow is not so much. So it gives you a breakdown of 6 important factors that individually contribute to your credit score, some impacting more than others. So I would say number 1 is being on top of your credit and having, you know, something as simple as Credit Karma, right? Not to promote Credit Karma, because I don't own them. I don't get any royalties for Credit Karma. I don't have any association with them. I just happen to like their service, right? Unfortunately, they only show you 1 out of the 3 bureaus, so that's where it gets tricky. But being on top of it and knowing where you stand, pulling your credit report or having a credit monitoring service. Number 2, engaging, you know, asking questions, you know, watching, you know, it's some of the biggest things that I did in every industry, especially, is get around people who are doing it. Look for a mentor. And I think, you know, you spoke about that at your presentation, which, you know, blew me away. That is one key piece that we fail to miss. We cannot do everything on our own. You know, we can't come from being a police officer or, you know, an accountant and just jump into this and expect that everything is going to go our way. We have to find a mentor. Find somebody who's done what you want to do in life. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast, because this is not the first time you're going to hear information that's going to help you get closer to that real estate goal. You know, you have to get around the people that are speaking the language that you want to learn, right?
That's good counsel. Good counsel. And number 3, you gave us 2, credit.
Oh, so that's 2. And then, well, number 3, obviously, you know, your finances. You know, one of the biggest things that I looked at is, you know, if I wanted to start investing in real estate, what are the small things that I can minimize? In my opinion, those are things that we look at and we overlook, I think, sometimes. You know, I started realizing all the money I was spending on my coffees, all the money I was spending on my dinners. You know, those are things that, as in finances, we want to look at. What is coming in and what is going out? You know, are you projecting to save for your down payment within the next 3 to 6 months? Because if I'm working on your credit and I help you boost your score 70 to 100 points within, you know, 30 to 90 days, you're going to love me and you're going to want to pull the trigger. But the next thing you're going to need is a little bit of capital, maybe not a lot, but what are we doing to put ourselves in the best position to pull the trigger? And I like looking at all angles, you know, expenses, income, credit, you know, the finances, and being on top, which is monitoring. It's maintaining the maintenance so that your success stays as green as long as you can.
Perfect. Now I want to ask you about so you mentioned something about when you came to my event. Yes. How was that experience for you? Because we talked about being around other investors, and I want to hear your perspective. How was that experience for you going to a real estate investors meetup? Because I'm always telling you, you're going to be a speaker at my next event, as you know. But we're going to talk about this because this is important to me. This is something that I know the importance of having good credit. I know the importance of what it can do for you and how you can use your credit to leverage cash flow and use other people's money to make money. And it starts with your credit. So how was that experience, you know, for you?
If I had to word it, I would say culture. You know, I'm a big believer in culture because, you know, for anything to be successful, you have to have a strong culture. And by walking into that room, I could literally feel the warmth of people who wanted to answer my questions, you know, do business with me, give me feedback. It was very eye-opening because I've been obviously to many different companies. I've presented for many real estate offices, mortgage lenders, different banks. First time that I've actually gone to, you know, that area and actually sat in a real estate investment course or training in a seminar. And for me, it was very eye-opening because I can see how this could be a huge contribution to someone having success. As a matter of fact, one of the things I told my business partner, GK, who also owns the company with me, I was like, this was such a cool event because of the fact that you can go there and meet other investors, other people that are starting off like you. You can meet people who have been in the business for years, people who already have 20 plus properties. So you can meet your starting person who's getting in there, getting their feet wet, learning all the terminology, learning all the ins and outs, all the loopholes to saving money, which everyone wants to know, right? But nobody wants to put in the time necessarily to do that. These events allow people to just extract all that information so much easier, and even so much so, further than that, they can invest with other people that they meet in that group, which I thought was very impressionable. I met that couple that you were talking about. I think his name was, I know her name was G, and I think his name was Mike.
Mark.
Mark.
One of my students. Yeah, two of my students. Yeah.
Excellent. And I love the fact that they were able to meet by going to that location, engaging with other people who have the same mindset, and they did something together and got their own property together, and now they're business partners. That for me was super impressionable because you usually don't see people that just get into a room and mingle and do business like that right away and have immediate success. So the fact that they have a system to follow, they have a place to show up at where they can learn a system and then execute together, with the guidance of veterans, that's amazing. You know, it's literally like holding somebody and walking them into their own success. And I love that, because what I do for my credit clients is try to guide them as easy as possible as to how we can get them to that goal.
So that was my next question. Thank you for that, by the way. We strive, my group, my team and I really strive to create that environment. That's why I'm always telling people, go to RIA meetups. It doesn't matter, you know, you could be in California. We have a big following. This podcast has a big following in California. Guys, wherever you are, in Canada, it doesn't matter, around the world, wherever you are, go to your local real estate investors meetup if you want to become an investor. If you're a newbie, it doesn't matter. Just go, be around the energy, be around the people, learn, grow. You never know. You beat 50% of the people by showing up. You never know who you're going to meet there. You never know if you're going to meet your next partner there. So that leads me to my next and final question, my friend, and that is, what is it that you do to help people? How do you actually help people with their credit? So someone's listening and they're saying, man, I really like Eric. I really like what he's saying. How can Eric help me? What is it that Eric does that can help me improve my credit so I can be in that position when the opportunity comes in the future that I can execute on good deals?
Absolutely. Very good question. I'm very passionate about this one. There's so much that I would love to talk about, but to keep it brief, what I really specialize in is removing negative, derogatory, or accounts that are impacting your credit and removing scores, right? I'm very good at that. That was one of the biggest things that I did in commercial credit, is disputing major collections. And I handle things as light as removing minor inquiries. You know, you might have somebody who needs, maybe they pulled their credit, you know, more than they should have. You know, maybe they have I spoke to a gentleman who has 15, 20 inquiries in just the last 30 days, right? Anyone who's in banking is probably going to look at that and say red flag. So those are things that I do for people, as minor as that and as severe as removing bankruptcies and repossessions and charge-offs for major credit cards. Those are things that I have all had success with many times in the past. So I put them through a program where I can get majority, if not everything off. And I say that because there's no guarantee, right, to these disputes whenever we investigate accounts, but I'm very good at removing and saving people thousands of dollars in collections and debts from having to pay back. That's my number one goal, is what I can do there to clean up as much negative information as possible in the least amount of time as possible. 2, save the client as much money from having to pay back, because the reality is, if they were in a position to do so, I wouldn't be in business, right? And then 3, teach them how to maintain and improve their credit, maybe by opening up a few accounts, starting positive trade lines. Maybe if they already have 1 or 2 credit cards that are showing some positive behaviors, what can we do to expand that and make that even better? So my goal is to get people at the very least into their financial goal, getting pre-approved for a home. I've had many success stories with, my personal title agent that I use for a lot of my homes. Get him his dream car of a Corvette. I've had people get a $20,000 credit card. I've had people get $1,000 at closing because their credit was so good that the bank wrote them a check back for $1,000. Those are the success stories and the things that I live for, and at the very least, what I'm going to do for you is improve your overall financial health so that you can be closer to getting approved for what you want and deserve out of life.
Perfect, man. You could not have put it any better, brother. So if anyone wants to get a hold of you, how do they find you, Eric? Someone is saying right now, I need to start taking action. I need to start taking massive action. This is the first step, guys. Listen, you need to be looking for deals. You need to be always looking for deals. You need to be talking to realtors. You need to be in the game. You need to be at RIA meetups. And if your credit's not good, you need to be doing this at the same time. You need to be working on this at the same time, because eventually the rubber's gonna meet the road where your credit's eventually it's gonna happen, right? So where can people reach you, Eric? How can people reach you, brother?
Yes. So, I mean, they could shoot us a message or an email, I should say, directly to gkunitedllc@gmail.com. We're on all social media platforms as well, Instagram, Facebook, as GK United LLC. It's all together. So if anyone has questions, they can DM us, private message us. You can go directly on our website, which is gkunitedllc.com. You can watch a quick video. It tells you a little bit more as to how our company works and what we do for you. And if you want to go and fill out a free consultation, you can fill out a quick one-page summary, and we'll gladly get back to you within 24 hours and make sure that we have all your questions answered about credit.
Eric, thank you so much. This was fantastic. You shared a ton of valuable content, ton of valuable information, and I'm sure this is going to help and impact many people's lives that are listening right now. Guys, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to improve your credit and you got some questions about your credit, this is the guy you need to call. Again, remember, you need to be in meetups. Eric said the 3 actionable steps. I'm going to read those to you again. Credit monitoring system. You need to get some sort of credit monitoring system. Number 2, engage, ask questions, find a mentor, find someone that's fiscally, financially healthy that you can model, ask questions, right? And start paying down some of the things that you have, as Eric said. Guys, again, thank you for listening. You've been listening to Latinos in Real Estate Investing podcast. And as usual, everything will be in the show notes. Eric's information, all of my information will be in the show notes. Happy investing, guys, and we'll see you soon. Eric, my brother, thank you for being here. I appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you, Martin. I appreciate you having me on. I hope I can help out anyone who reaches out. I'm looking forward to more information like this.
Perfect.